Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of The Language of Leadership. I'm your host, Chuck Marting. And today I wanted to talk about a topic that I've been hearing a lot about. Done a lot of contemplating on this subject and have done a lot of reading and a lot of reflection myself. And I had an incident last night that kind of brought this to the forefront and confirmed that this was something that I wanted to bring to you here on The Language of Leadership. You see, I had gone to a employer last night, was called out at about 9 o'clock at night. And when I got there, it was because the person was intoxicated in the workplace. And the supervisor was a fairly young supervisor, one who has some experience, but she was there, and you could tell that she was in a very uncomfortable position with this individual. He is, like I said, he was intoxicated, and I was able to talk to him, was able to do the things that I needed to do while I was there. But it was interesting seeing his mannerisms and the things that he said while his supervisor sat there and really didn't know what to say to this individual. So one of the things that, and it's pretty common with what my company does, to have people respond to us sometimes, especially if they're intoxicated, in much the same way this individual did with me. And that is, we went ahead and did a breath alcohol test, and turned out that he was a 0.267, which is pretty high. And he readily admitted that he was under the influence, that he had celebrated at his mother's birthday party the night before. And granted, this was the night before that he said he started drinking, but yet we're doing this at 9 o'clock at night. Okay. And he's still very much intoxicated. And it was amazing listening to him trying to justify why he would come to work like that. And one of his comments was that he was told that because they were shorthanded at work, that it didn't matter what the situation was. If you call in sick, if you call out, you're going to be fired. That was his excuse. And when the supervisor heard this, she just kind of looked at him, and she really didn't have an answer for him. And he was looking to get that reaction from her, and he wasn't getting anything. So then, of course, he turned his focus on me, and he asked me if I enjoyed getting people fired from their job. And so I just looked at him and I smiled, and I said, "Look," I said, "I didn't hire you and I didn't fire you. I have no dog in this fight. I'm here to make sure that you're following policy, and that's what I'm here for, and testing you for." And he said, "Well, because of you, I'm going to lose my job." And so we had a little bit of a discussion in that area, telling him basically that, you're accountable for your own actions. And he tried to deflect that by saying, "But yeah, well, if I didn't come in, I was going to get fired." And so I'm looking to the supervisor to kind of help talk to this person, to tell them what their policies are, what's going to happen from here. And she was not doing anything at this point. And so we continued to talk, and he finally realized, after speaking with me, and I let him vent. And I have found, when you have people that are like this, the best thing you can do is just let them talk. Let them talk. And then when there's a period of time where they're not going to be talking, then you can respond. And so I was able to bring that situation down, where it wasn't as confrontational, and so that he was agreeing a little bit with me. Um, but then at the end, we're done with everything. Now this gentleman's going to have to go home or have somebody come and get him. And that was the bone of contention that we had to deal with next. And that was with this leader not sure what she was supposed to do. And so I allowed her to do what she was doing, to be able to help where I could. and not try and take anything away from her. You know, it's one of those things in leadership that leaders are wanting to be acknowledged. They're wanting to be treated with respect, and they're wanting the individual to understand that they have a job to do, and in turn, the individual or the team member also has a job to do. And so he wouldn't give the phone number to somebody to come pick him up. He said, I'm within walking distance. I'll just walk home. And when she looked at me, kind of like, help, I looked at this gentleman and I explained to him, look, for liability reasons, we cannot allow you to go home walking. And the reason for that is should you get into an accident, walking across the street and somebody hits you because they don't see you because it's dark outside and you've been drinking, the company can be liable for not taking a more proactive measure and trying to protect you. And as we were talking and explaining it to him that way, his main concern was that he was going to lose his job. And so, you can't sugarcoat something like that, but you can do it in a way that you're not going to be so confrontational. And I explained to this gentleman that, you know, you need to go and talk to your HR department and find out what they have. They may have a second chance policy. They may have ways for you to be able to retain your job, but you're not going to know that tonight. And that's why you're going to have to come back. And explain that to him. His girlfriend came and got him. We were able to leave. But my point in bringing that up to you is that I am seeing a big lack of understanding as to how we should be dealing with situations like this and others as a leader and being able to communicate with our staff and to our teams and trying to help them to understand that it's not because of, you know, I have it out for you or anything like that, but it's more of a thing for them to understand that workplace safety is huge. And especially with this company and what they do, there's no way that you would want somebody that was intoxicated like this. And it caused me to reflect on a couple things. There's been a couple articles that U.S. News has done on leaders specifically, and they did a poll stating that Americans are down on society's leaders, especially in politics right now. And that makes a little bit of sense with us being in a situation where we're going to be voting for a president for the United States, whether it's you choose to vote for the current president we have or whoever it is that is running against him at this time. It looks as to be Donald Trump. And so, regardless of your political aspirations or what you feel, those are our choices, and that's what we have to look at. And it says that the government is really has a leadership crisis. And according to this new US News poll that was taken, 85% of the respondents to this poll agreed that there was a definite issue with leaders. And the majority of that was that they said that leaders in the US are disappointing. They're disappointing because they're not prepared. They're not able to respond to crises and they don't match the values held by everyday Americans, which I found pretty interesting because there's a lot of difference between different groups that we're going to be working with within the workplace. And according to that same poll, it said that 86% of the Americans that responded are largely disappointed by leaders in society. And of that, 47% are strongly disappointed. So almost half of the people that were polled are strongly disappointed about this. And the survey asked, it said about 2,100 Americans in this poll to assess their state of being as far as what they felt leadership in this country from the government to the business world was at. Where are we at? And these respondents were very honest in a lot of the things that they said, or at least it appeared to be in this survey. But, I found it interesting that 84% of them said that there is a leadership crisis in the United States government today. And they compared that to the 78% who say that there's also a crisis in corporate America, and that nearly 75% of those respondents believe that politicians care more about their own power and influence than their constituents. And then 72% said that most politicians are not trustworthy, which is something that is mind-boggling. That I felt that it would have been higher than that actually, and that's still a pretty high number, 72%. But many felt that their leaders are withholding society from advancing, while they believe that political leaders are even worse in society. In that poll, it says that given the considerable concern that large scale society problems like the economy, climate change, AI, and other things are what Americans are growing more and more weary about. And a lot of it is because there's no understanding. There are very little information that is out there for them to find out. But, when you have surveys like this and they tell you that over half of your team says that they don't trust their leaders, that, exactly 72% said that they do not trust their leaders. But they did say that they trust their local leaders more than national leaders. Is that because we're around our leaders more, that we have that physical one on one relationship with them compared to our national leaders that, let's face it, a lot of us will never see? Some of us are only going to see them on TV or on YouTube or wherever the case may be. There's not going to be that face to face like you have with a daily leader. So I think that that's why that percentage was the way that it was in that survey. You know, it was very interesting that even along political lines, whether it was Democrats or Republicans, they said that Democrats and Republicans are more split in other areas, but they said that Republicans were far more likely, 76%, than Democrats, 60%, to say today's political leaders are trustworthy. So it goes back to that trust. It goes back to what they say to us, how they are as leaders. And I found it interesting also in the survey that it said that one of the things that team members or current employees with leaders in the workplace were more concerned about was that their current leaders were not developing and bringing up other leaders. They weren't being able to associate with them or get to the point where they understood those individuals within their own team. They were not able to develop those relationships so that they could do this. And what the fear is that a lot of these leaders that are in corporate America are starting to retire and starting to leave. And the crisis that they're anticipating is that we have no one left in that void to be able to come in and take over and to be able to be in charge and to be effective in communicating and dealing with a team. And I think that's where this podcast comes into play, is in trying to help today's leaders, you, to be able to respond and to be more diverse with your team. I mean, let's face it, we're still going to have individuals that may be older that are in the workplace, but it said that there's other issues that are more concerning to these individuals, and a lot of it is opportunity, that they don't see that opportunity for them to be able to go back and to be part of a workplace that they have been dedicating their time to. They feel that they are being snubbed and that they're not given that opportunity. And I think that's something that we need to realize. And I think with the language of leadership, one of the things that we've been teaching you as a leader is to be able to develop those relationships with those individuals to make them not only know, but feel that they are part of that team, that they can take ownership on some of the things that you have to do. But there has to be more clear communication between us as leaders and with those that we lead, to be able to explain to them the things that may be concerning to them. And I think when you read that article, and we'll link it to the show notes for you to be able to read that survey, because it was interesting that the US News did two articles almost back to back within just a few weeks of each other on this topic of the crisis in leadership. And I agree with their assessment, with what I am seeing with current leaders, those that I'm working with currently, and those that I have communication with, and those that I have in contact with that are clients, and being able to watch and observe and to see, I can most definitely see that. Leaders, welcome to the Alliance Mastermind Group, your exclusive gateway to leadership excellence inspired by the visionary Napoleon Hill. In this mastermind, we believe leadership is about more than just titles. It's about realizing your dreams. So I want you to picture a close-knit community of leaders, each dedicated to helping you turn your visions into reality. You know, throughout history, mastermind groups have been the cornerstone of leadership success. Now it's your chance to become part of this legacy. The Alliance Mastermind Group is not just about support. It's about actively working together to ensure your leadership journey is extraordinary. Our comprehensive approach includes cutting-edge training sessions tailored to amplify your leadership skills. This is more than just a group. It's like having your own executive board invested in your progress and your success. Imagine having a team where each member is genuinely invested in seeing you achieve your goals. Are you ready to transform your leadership journey? Apply now using the link in the description of this video and secure your place among the chosen 10. The Alliance Mastermind Group, where leadership dreams are nurtured. Take the first step towards the future where your visions become reality. Your journey starts now. One of the things that I found pretty intriguing was I was talking to a leader at another one of my clients who's a leader that is managing a pretty good sized crew, and it is for a national company, let's put it that way. And he was very stressed out and asking a lot of questions because he wasn't sure what direction he should be going with a lot of different things. And so one of the things I asked him is I said, what are you doing to prepare yourself as a leader to be a better leader? And he said, absolutely nothing. I don't have time. And I said, what are they teaching you as a leader to be able to be productive and to be able to encourage your team and do that? He says, absolutely nothing. He says, I got put in this position and here I am, and I get yelled at if productivity is down and everything else. But he says, I have no way of being able to understand the totality of the situation and knowing exactly what it is that I need to do. And in that case, what I told him he needed to do was to go to his supervisor or to his leadership and say, look, I want to be more effective. Will you support me in allowing me to purchase a course or to be able to get a book or being reimbursed for those kind of things that are going towards his leadership within that business and goes towards his ability to be able to take care of his team. And you should have seen the look on his eyes when I recommended that to him. It brightened him up. It changed his whole demeanor, knowing that he could be in charge of his own leadership style and to be able to determine how to be a better leader to those that he leads right now. It gave him hope. And, sometimes and you've heard me say this here on the language of leadership, a lot of times it's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle. You need that outside influence looking at you and at the entire situation, and then being able to make suggestions. Now, I didn't come up with you need to go to this course and you need to do this and this. Now, maybe I could have, but it would have required a little bit more of a conversation and more than what we were dealing with at that moment. But my point in talking to him was to tell him, look, you can take charge of this. You can go to them and tell them that you're needing this extra leadership to be able to help you become a better leader and to help your team and see if they're able to buy off on that. What I have found is that a lot of times they will reimburse you for those things if you go and you communicate with them. A lot of companies do have a budget that's been set aside for leadership to be able to do things like that. And that's probably one of the first things that you need to do is to find out if they have a reimbursement or if there's that ability for you to go and do something, come back with the receipts and stuff and to be reimbursed for that. And even if it's not, I've got to tell you, there are so many different ways of learning to become a effective leader, not only through this podcast, but going to YouTube. YouTube is free. There's so much that you can find and enough of it that is free that it can really help guide and direct you and develop you into a better leader than you are now. And you may find that style of leadership that really resonates with you and you're able to pursue it, but also be able to find other people that are going to support you in the meantime to be able to help you in accomplishing those goals that you're going to have. So, one of the things that I would encourage you all to do right now is to kind of reevaluate your leadership style. And once you do that and you understand what it is that you as a leader need, look at your leadership that you go to and you get direction and guidance from. And I think you need to have communication. You need to have an ability to talk to them and bring this information to them and express your concerns, but not just dumping that on them. Let them know what it is that you're concerned about, but let them know what you've done to try and change that. And so now you're taking that heat off of this leader thinking, oh, now I got to solve this for this person. Just one more thing on my list. How many of you heard this? Okay. If you come to them with a plan of action, and something that you believe in, even if they're not going to support you with this, you have a direction that you're wanting to go in, and they can't stop you from going into that direction. And then being able to implement some of those things. Now, granted, there are some things that you're probably going to have the approval of the leadership team to be able to start or to instigate and to be able to involve your team in. That's not a problem. Put a presentation together and bring it to them, but give them the opportunity to tell you yes or no and see your development and watch what happens with your team as you do those things. It's going to be like night and day. I can guarantee it. Look, the bottom line is our team, the people that work with you, that you are a leader over, they are starving to be taught, to be led, to be valued, and to have somebody recognize their talents and the things that they bring to the table. Now, there's going to be some that it's not going to matter what you do. Their their only interest is coming to work, doing what they're supposed to do, punching out, cashing their check, and going home. And that's fine. If those people are dependable and that's what they want to do, then great. We need those kind of people too. Okay. But then we can concentrate our efforts on those that we know are wanting to change and that we can have a hand in that. So then when you as a leader are either given an opportunity for promotion or you're going to move to a different company because they have a different set of values that you are really resonating with, that you want to be a part of, you've got somebody else that you've been developing that you can at least recommend before you leave and they can bring up and to be able to do those things, because that's one of the fears that this article that was in the US News report was saying, is that there's no grooming, there's nobody going to these leaders and developing them to help them take over from where they're at. Now, the other thing that I found that was really interesting, and I'm sure that some of you have dealt with this as well, and that is individuals that you've come to, because I've done this. where I've gone to somebody and I said, you know what, you really need to put in for that promotion or be a new sergeant or whatever the case may be, because they were a leader and it was just screaming what kind of leader they would be and how much the men and women around them would benefit from that leadership. But I found it interesting in talking to some of those individuals. They don't want the drama. They don't want the added pressure, and they don't feel that they are going to be supported to be effective. And that's the bottom line. You're always going to have people that desire that position of power because it may be the only time in their life that they've had that experience of being able to do something like that and to have some power. It's kind of like being a new police officer. Everybody goes through it. They call it rookie-nitis, okay? All of a sudden, you become a police officer, and guess what? You can pull cars over. You can write tickets. You can arrest people. You can do a lot of different things. And there's a lot of power there, but there's a lot of discretion that needs to be taken along with that. And, when you first get into it, all of a sudden, guess what? You can pull cars over and give them tickets for all kinds of different things. You can do that. Okay. And it's perfectly legal because it's against the law or it's against city ordinance. It's against city and municipalities ordinances that they have. And so it's not like you're going rogue that you really shouldn't be doing it, but you're going to be exercising that as a new police officer because guess what? You've never been able to do this before. And it sounds kind of weird, but they're going to start writing those tickets. They're going to be running radar and giving people tickets for speeding or whatever the case may be. But you go in phases as a police officer as well, where all of a sudden you got this whole ability of being able to be effective and you're just going to go out and start running with it. But after a period of time, you start settling down and you start realizing and start prioritizing, and you're not pulling over as many cars like you used to. You don't do a lot of things that you used to because you were so enthusiastic about doing them. But now you understand a little bit more about the position that you're in. You're more discretionary as to the things that you're going to devote your time to and those that you're going to develop to become a better leader and to be a better person in the position that you're in. And I think it's a lot like a lot of the leadership that we've seen. And so, even though those individuals are not wanting to be in those positions, we can go and utilize them as a mentor or a person that's going to be able to help you develop your skills and talents to become a better leader, a leader that they would even follow. And that is incredible when you're able to do that. So I know that this is kind of a short episode this week, but I wanted to bring this to you because it's something that I've been contemplating, something that I've been listening to, and a lot that I've been experiencing within this last week. And I think that we all need to step back and set up our own goals and aspirations as to where we are wanting to be, where we're going. You know, a lot of it ends up going back to some of the things that we've talked about before and some of the books that are available right now. Who, Not How. Okay. There's a lot of different books out there that are really effective right now in the arena of leadership that you don't need anybody's permission to buy and to be able to read and start looking at what you can instigate or develop within your leadership role. So I would highly encourage you to do that. But until next week, until we come with you with a different interview or a different story or a different topic for the language of leadership, know that your leadership matters, your team matters. The people that trust you and follow you matter. It's a heavy, heavy burden sometimes, but it's one that can be lightened if you develop those skills and you're able to teach those skills to others and bring them up with you and take some of that load off of you. So until next week, I hope you have a great week. Remember to share the show and remember to take care and stay safe. Thanks.